SOS option in the 4Runner, which is kind of like a paid add-on. You get a trial when you get the vehicle, but essentially what happens is you can hit this button and it will call Toyota's call center to help you if you're in trouble, if you're in a bad situation, for emergency response. It does require that there's a cell signal, so it's not perfect, but it's still better than having nothing. If your phone's dead or something like that, that could probably save your life. So I'm really glad that's in the vehicle. Also with the navigation system, there's an option to get essentially human-assisted destinations. So if you're having trouble finding something, you can basically call up the call center and get help with your navigation, and they'll send the destination right to your screen. I have used that one time in Utah, and it didn't get me out of a jam really, but it was really cool. It worked well. I was instantly connected with a human, and that's just a nice feature to have when you're on these long road trips, especially by yourself. So that's really cool. And but yeah, going back to just, I think it's a pretty comfortable ride. I told you about the radar cruise control, but even with the all-terrain tires, the KO2s, and I have the low to E rating KO2s, the ride is pretty damn smooth. There's certainly some travel in the wheel compared to a lot of these crossovers, these luxury crossovers that are out there, and even some of the non-luxury, I'm sure, are more comfortable and a smoother ride. But considering what this is, like a decade-old, concept with a really serious off-road system and all-terrain tires, and it's basically shaped like a box. And it's tall. It's pretty damn comfortable, and even though the engine's dated and it definitely needs an overhaul, it needs more gears, it does a pretty decent job at maintaining speed. And that's no surprise. A lot of these Japanese vehicles, I've had Hondas in the past and whatnot, even though they don't have as much torque as a lot of competitors, they do pretty well in the mid and upper range, the upper RPM range, and so they're pretty good highway cruisers. That said, the 4Runner does start to show its age and its drawbacks when you're in the mountains and stuff like that, when you're at elevation. It's a little bit harder for the engine to find its comfort zone and the right gear, but it's not a major problem. And I'm speaking about this from the perspective of having driven Jeeps. I have a friend that has a really cool modded Jeep. He's got bigger tires and a lift on it and stuff. But because the Jeep is just not as stable from the factory on the highway and at high speeds, it's just not as comfortable for the long road trips. And especially if you modify it, it's going to be a lot tougher to drive and a lot more tiring to drive than the 4Runner. And so that was part of my evaluation with getting this vehicle as well. It's just like, I want to be as comfortable as possible when I'm putting on these long miles. So yeah, I think that considering the whole package and what this is, I feel like this drives better than a lot of vehicles, even cars, on the highway. Now, this one was equipped with KDSS, which I know, is not what most 4Runners have, because a lot of folks go for the SR5 and the lower trims. But the KDSS basically was a feature borrowed from the Land Cruiser, and the idea is, it's a hydraulic system, and the idea is that when you're on road, it's going to be much more stable because it's got these really thick beefy sway bars to keep the composure of the vehicle. But then when you're off-road, the sway bars can be relaxed. And this all happens automatically based on what's going on with the wheels. Because all the wheels essentially are talking to each other with this system to figure out, you know, which wheel needs more articulation when you're off-road. And I find that it works really well, again, considering how dated this design is. I think the KDSS takes it a step further over the stock SR5 4Runners and the TRD off-road 4Runners. And even the TRD Pro, it's going to have a little bit less sway, a little bit less body roll and dip, especially when you're braking. Like, you still definitely get the dip even in this KDSS model, but I find overall it's pretty well composed, even around, you know, pretty aggressive turns and things like that. It feels a lot less like a truck in that regard. So I think those are kind of the main things that I wanted to cover. But you know, going over some of the more like comfort features, I think the seats are very adequate. You know, they're heated and they've got, you know, plenty of options for control, to adjust seat position and lumbar, things like that. Of course, they can make it better, but again, this is a dated design. I wasn't coming in expecting super luxury in this thing, but it would be nice in the new 4Runner to get, you know, cooled seats added. I would add a heated steering wheel, you know, a little bit more control over the passenger seat and the rear seats. Let's get heated seats and heated and cool seats in the back as well. That would be nice. What else? Oh, the moonroof is really cool. No issues there. I mean, a little bit, you know, you do get wind noise for sure. But man, especially in Colorado on all these sunny days, when it's not too windy, you know, which is most days to be honest, you can just put the moonroof back and the rear window down, and man, it feels really nice. It's a nice open air experience, and you get nice airflow through the cabin. And I hardly use the side windows at all because there's enough airflow coming in between the moonroof and the rear window. So it's not quite as nice as like taking the doors off the Jeep or the top off of a Bronco. No doubt, that would be awesome. But it's pretty cool considering, you know, what it is. You can get a lot of sunshine in the cabin and a nice kind of open air experience with the two windows. Now, since this is a Venture Edition, mine came with the Yakima Mega Warrior roof basket, which I love. I use it all the time. I'm going to use it on my return trip from Chicago because I'm going to have to put all my camping gear up top because I'll have a pretty full cabin. But the roof rack is great. I feel like it's a really good size and kind of similar to the cargo